bladder just died. It's just ruptured. Oh man. I was in hospital yesterday, and this woman next to me, I'll explain why I was in hospital soon, but just to start the story, I was in hospital and I was completely fine. Like, I was in hospital as a precaution because I thought I had an emergency, and I almost did. It could have very well been extremely deadly what happened to me, but I survived. But so I'm sitting in bed, I'm sitting on the hospital bed, like literally just sitting on the side reading my phone, and the woman in the bed next to me was fucking dying, like screaming in pain, like writhing on the bed and vomiting, and like really in a really bad way. It was so bad. This isn't even a funny story. This is just a story about how shit it was. Apparently she'd eaten something that had caused her stomach to bleed and her intestines to bleed, because I could hear everything the doctors were saying, and they were giving her medication to like remove the acid from her stomach and stop the bleeding and all this kinds of shit, and like it was fucked. So I don't know exactly what happened to her, but that's what was going on in the bed next to me, and I'm just like on my phone completely fine going, holy shit, like it's fucking crazy in here. Yeah, so I had to go to hospital yesterday. First of all, I was walking around, as you do, just walking around in the bush, looking for things to eat. I guess that's what you could call it. No, I was walking the dog. So I was walking the dog on this big walking track, and there's all kinds of walking tracks around near where I live. I live way out of the city, like 2 hours out of Melbourne. So you can pretty much go in the car from my house. You can just go into the bush, like 4 minutes walk from my house. There's proper bush with snakes and like possums and kangaroos and stuff, and you can just walk around and see them. But we went for a drive to a proper walking track. It's like a flagged, picketed signpost. This is a walking trail. It tells you how far it goes. It tells you the different stops. We'd been on one area of the walking track, and you can take dogs on it too. So we're taking the dogs walking. It's the second time I've been on that walking track. One time we started at the end of the walking track, walked for a few kilometers, then took a shortcut back up onto the road, and then just walked back down the road to the car. This time, we drove the car into the bush. I've got a 4-wheel drive. Drove the car into the bush, so we're a bit out of the way. And we went to like the second stop of the walking track, which is in the middle of the bush. So we drove to the second stop, got out and walked along the track a bit there. Did the same thing, walked along the track with the dogs, cut up, like I looked on the map where the track sort of goes and comes near a road, gets close to a road, and we took a shortcut up through the bush, not on the track. So actually like trudging through the bush to get back on the road and then walk back to the car. So, oh, that's fine. I got in the car, like this is, so like a 2-hour walk maybe, 1 to 2 hours for this walk back to the car. Somebody said an interceptor's coming. It's a Russian retribution. Somebody get the Russian retribution. I think I didn't click anchor. That's probably going to be a problem. So yeah, I got back to the car and started driving home. We're going to drive home. And I said, something bit me on the leg, because I felt blood on my leg. Like I felt something on my leg and I didn't know what it was. So my leg was itchy and I scratched it. So I'm like, scratched it. And as I scratched it, I felt like blood on my fingers. And I'm like, oh, and I thought it was like maybe a blackberry or a bit of stick or a bit of wood or whatever. I'm like, I think something bit me. And didn't really pay any attention to it at all. Got home and I was completely fine. Like nothing was wrong with me at all. And I was lying down on the couch watching TV, or I was like literally lying on the couch with my iPad, and I noticed that I was bleeding on the couch. Like I'd got blood on the couch, and I'm like, holy shit, like I looked at my leg where I'd scratched it, and the leg was bleeding, and the couch had blood on it. So I'm like, I'm worried about the couch, because we only got this couch like a year ago. It's made out of fabric. So I'm like fixing the couch where I'd bled on it. Couch is fine, by the way. Nothing's wrong with the couch. You can't even tell where it was, because I cleaned it up really good. And I'm like, oh, my fucking leg. And I'm like, I've definitely scratched my leg or something. So I like looked at my leg and I wiped it away with a sponge, and it looked exactly like a snake bite. And I was like, what the fuck? And anyway, and this is like an hour after it happened. So, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, if it's a snake bite, I'd be dead by now. Like, you know, like the snakes where I live are extremely venomous. The kind of thing where people get bitten by snakes where I live and they say that you'll die within like 8 minutes. That's what they say. So I'm like, oh, fucking hell. And just for reference, I'll show you a picture of what the wound looked like. So, can I make this on my screen? This is my leg, right? The two dots at the top are like 2 puncture marks in my leg, and the blood was running out of it and would not stop bleeding. So I wiped it off, and let's have a look. Got another picture here. That's what it looked like when I wiped it, and I was like, oh, and I was joking about it. I'm like, haha, looks like I got bitten by a snake. And I'm like, nah, wait, it's not a snake. I'm like, if it's a snake, I'd be really, really sick. And I would know about it. And then I started thinking about it. So I put like a bandage on it because it was not stopping bleeding. It was annoying me. It's like my sock was soaked in blood. My pants that I was wearing at the time, I went out and checked my pants, and my pants had a big blood stain on them. So I'm like, fucking hell. And then I'm like, oh, maybe it is a snake bite. So I started panicking because I wasn't really panicking. I'm like, it's been a long time. If it's a snake bite, I would definitely feel sick by now. So I checked, started reading online about different types of snake bites. All different types of snakes do all different types of things, but most of the ones, there's no friendly snakes where I live. So any snake where I live is deadly. So I'm like, if I've been bitten by a snake, it's a problem. But there's a chance that if you get bitten by a snake, they just bite you and they don't envenom you. So I'm reading all about it, and I started reading about all different types of snakes, and every single snake says that if you get bitten by it, it hurts, it gets inflamed, and your leg starts to burn and everything. And I didn't have anything like that. I didn't even feel it. I'm like, I didn't even know I'd been bitten. And it just, the only thing weird about it is it looks like a snake bite and it won't stop bleeding. Until I read the most poisonous snake in Australia, the brown snake, if it bites you, sometimes you don't know. You don't feel it and it won't stop bleeding. I'm like, I'll get fucked. I'm like, shit, I've been bitten by a brown snake, maybe. So, and I'm like, well, don't these things kill you? So I'm looking up and they're like, okay, so there's only like a 10% chance that you will have a really bad reaction from a brown snake. Like if you get bitten by a brown snake and it gets you really badly, you will die straight away, like 8 to 15 minutes. You will literally have a heart attack and die because your blood will get really thin. So like your blood won't clot at all. Your heart pressure, like your blood pressure will drop way down, and you'll either have, like your gums will start to bleed because the blood will like start seeping out of your gums, and you'll have a stroke or you'll have a heart attack and you'll just die. I'm like, well, that definitely didn't happen. So I don't think I've been bitten by a brown snake. But like I said, it was not bleeding. I mean, it kept bleeding. I'm like, well, it mustn't have been a brown snake because I'm not dead. And if it didn't kill me, it must have just been a dry bite, or I've just been scratched by one enough to maybe cause me to bleed a little bit. And by this time, like I said, it's a couple of hours after it's happened. And then I was reading more and more about it. So I'm like, all right, I better figure out what's going on. And I read like what the protocol is at the hospital for when someone presents with a suspected snake bite. And it's like, if you're the doctor, here's what you need to do. So I'm reading through what doctors do when someone presents with a snake bite. And it says like suspected brown snake bite. It says like if they've collapsed or are unconscious, what to do. I'm like, no, that's not me. And it says if there's a suspected brown snake bite, they come in and they appear with no symptoms. They need to have their blood monitored, like blood tests every hour, because up to 8 hours later, everything could seem fine. But then potentially up to 8 hours later, they could just have a stroke or a heart attack and die anyway, like with absolutely no symptoms. So I'm like, holy shit, I've had no symptoms. It's a couple of hours. And they said, well, you definitely should not, if you think you've been bitten by a brown snake, you definitely should not go to sleep, because you could have symptoms, like you could start getting blurry vision. Why did the camera go off? What happened there? I might have clicked the camera button. Yeah. Oh, it's really small. Oh, here we go. Back to Eve. I was on the wrong screen. Yeah, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, because apparently like they can bite and they can leave venom in your muscles, and the venom can seep into your blood, and if it gets into your blood thins out and you have a stroke. And that can take hours. So obviously most of the time, if you get bitten really bad, it goes straight in your blood and you die. If you get bitten just in the muscle, it can seep into your blood and you can die hours later. So I was like, oh fucking hell, I better go to the hospital. So I got to the hospital. First of all, I couldn't find the emergency room because the emergency room has moved from where it used to be. I haven't been to the hospital for like 10 years. So I was fucking around for ages trying to get to the emergency. Found the emergency room. And just went up to the front to the triage nurse and I'm like, I think I got bitten by a snake like 3 hours ago. I've got no symptoms. It definitely looks like a snake bite, and I was definitely in an area where there is snakes. Like I've seen snakes there before. I didn't feel it, I didn't see it, I didn't even know it happened until after I got back to the car. And she looked at it and she goes, it definitely looks like a snake bite. So she took all my readings and that, things like heart pressure and that, and she wasn't too concerned. She goes, if you've been envenomated, your heart pressure, your blood pressure will drop. And I have high blood pressure anyway. I'm like, well, that's a good thing, isn't it? She's like, no, it's not a good thing. So she checked my blood pressure. Blood pressure was fine. She took my blood readings. They checked for like some markers in your blood and everything seemed fine. Like she goes, oh, everything is absolutely fine, but we can't let you leave because shit can happen like hours later. Like there might be nothing in your blood and it might seep into your blood. And because I'd wiped it off trying to figure out what it was, they couldn't test it to see if it was like a snake bite or not. They just basically had to keep me there and wait and see if I had any symptoms. So I was sitting in the waiting room and I didn't get a bed either for ages. I was like, I didn't need a bed. I was completely fine. I'm like, I was panicking though. I'm like, oh man, at least I'm in the hospital. Like if something goes wrong, I'm in the correct place for it. So I'm sitting in the waiting room. Oh, somebody came through the gate. Just sitting in the waiting room for hours because they wanted to take my blood every few hours just to make sure nothing was appearing in my blood. And they said 12 hours because they said after 12 hours it's pretty much safe. So I was like, fine. The whole time in the waiting room, this fucking guy was going off. Like he wanted to see the doctor because he had gout in his toe, which is fine. But he's not all there. He was a homeless guy. And the security guard said, I heard the security guard said, he's been coming in here for the last few days and stealing the hand sanitizer. So this guy's going off about his gout in his toe. And apparently the gout is causing him to get poison in his brain, which I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not going to argue with a guy with gout in his toe. He came in, he kept asking for coffee. And like, I don't know what triage emergency rooms are like where you guys are, but they don't give you coffee. Like you don't go in there, it's not a cafe. But these guys were humoring him. You had gout before, it's pure pain, like enough to make me want to just cut the toe off. Yeah, I can understand it's a problem. This guy was a nuisance though. I'm pretty sure he was just homeless and he wanted food, but he was being real belligerent about it. Like he wasn't being nice, he wasn't being polite. He was actually yelling and causing a scene. So he'd yell and cause a scene, ask for coffee, ask for tea, ask for a sandwich. They ended up giving him a sandwich and coffee. So he got what he wanted. He ate the sandwich. No shit, he had the coffee cup, walked outside and wandered off. So I'm like, oh, he's gone. And then the triage nurse called the security over and she goes to the security guy. The guy left and he stole the cup because it was a proper mug. It's like triage don't have disposable cups. They don't give people coffee. So like one of the nurses has gotten a proper mug from the kitchen, made him a coffee and given it to him, and he's stolen the mug. So security goes out to try and find him. Security drags him back into the triage room and he's yelling. He actually said, "It's my fucking mug. I got it off a mate." And I'm like trying not to laugh. Like this guy is fucking hilarious. So the security goes, "Fuck off, you did." Like the security guard's swearing at him. Like you did not, you dickhead, and that took the mug off him. Coffee spilled everywhere because it still had coffee in it. Took the mug off him, gave it to the triage nurse, and pushed him out of the triage room. Like pushed him out of the hospital. Get out. About 10 minutes later, he comes back in, and he's asking for a coffee again. So the triage nurse is like, "I'm not giving you anything." Like the triage nurse can't turn people away. Like they have to, like, if someone's got some kind of medical problem, they have to like secure that person. I guess like they can't just say fuck off from the hospital. So they're tolerating this guy, and security is trying to make sure that he's not gonna hurt anyone or not do anything. So he's fucking going on about coffee again. And he keeps getting up from his chair. So he's sitting in the patient waiting area, the same area I'm sitting in, just the area where you sit, where you wait to see a doctor or something. He keeps getting up from his chair, going over to the triage nurse, who's fucking busy, and like interrupting her and demanding to see a doctor because he's got poison in his brain. Anyway, this keeps going on for ages. I got a few videos of it. Once I get the videos sorted out, I forgot to do it today, I'll post them on my Discord, but I've got videos of this guy. I've got the video of where the security guard pulled him back into the triage room, took the cuff off him, and then pushed him back out the door. I got a video of that. I got a video of him standing, yelling, asking for a sandwich. It's fucking great. Anyway, eventually, so I'm sitting there because I got bitten by a snake. I'm sitting there and eventually I'm waiting for my blood results. This was taking ages, and I'm like, I'm thinking maybe I've been bitten by a snake. I don't know. Like, am I going to have a stroke? That no one seemed too concerned. And I'm like, okay, it's obviously not too bad. Otherwise, they would take me in straight away. Like, it's obviously just fine. And eventually, this woman comes out and she goes, "Oh, can you come with me for a minute?" Didn't say what about. She's like, "Can you just come with me?" And she goes, "I've got a bed for you." And I'm like, "A bed?" And she's like, "Yeah." "Oh, did we get a kill, did we?" "No, I'm only counting the ones that I get the mining barge on tonight. I've got to get the mining barge on at least one kill." I'm not paying attention, so I don't know if that's going to work. So like, they go and put me on a bed, and this is just an orderly. It's a female orderly, so she's not a nurse. She doesn't know what's going on. And I said, "Do I need a bed?" And she goes, "I've been told to get you a bed." And I'm like, "I'm just waiting on blood results to see if I'm okay." And she goes, "All right, I'll get the doctor." So I'm worried now. I'm like, oh man, I'm in a bed. Like, maybe I need to have some shit go on. And I've read all about this. Like, I'm essentially an expert on brown snake bites now because I've read everything there is to know about it. And I'm thinking, right, the worst thing that can happen is they'll determine that my blood has toxins in it and my blood is too thin. They'll administer an anti-venom and they'll monitor me to make sure I don't have like a heart attack or anything. And the anti-venom works quickly. So I'm like, if this has to happen, this will be fine. It will be okay, but I'm panicking. Doctor comes in and sees me, and he's cool. He's like, "Yeah, look, your bloods are fine." And I'm like, "Oh, fucking thank God." And he's like, "Give us a look at it." So the doctor has a look at it, and he's like, "It definitely looks like a snake bite." And then he says to me, he goes, "Mate, I've seen like 50 snake bites in my life. I've never ever had complications with any of them, and most of them, I think he said half of them, have no symptoms whatsoever." I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Aren't these like the deadliest snakes in the world?" And he's like, "That's what you read, but like you've pretty much got to be injected with a vial full of their shit to actually die." So I was really relieved, and he's like, "You look like you're going to be fine. Like you've probably just got a scratch from the snake, and that's why it's not healing properly. But we need to take your bloods again in a couple of hours." So by this time it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, okay. And I was kind of thinking, like, the doctor seems to think I'm fine. Maybe I'll just sign myself out, because you've got to sign a bit of paper that says that you've released yourself on your own recognizance or responsibility or whatever, one of them R words, so that they don't get sued for letting someone out that is going to die. And the doctor convinced me to stay. He's like, "No, look, shit can happen if you've got venom in your butt." Like, he explained to me, like, if you've got venom in your muscle and it leaks into your blood, it can cause a problem real quickly. So we'd like to take your bloods again in another, I think he said 2 hours. So I didn't end up getting out of the hospital until, I think I got home at 3:30, and I lived pretty close to the hospital. And that was my night. That's what I did. That's why I didn't do a stream yesterday. Because some fucking guy kept asking for sandwiches in the triage room and slowing everybody down. I was in a hurry. Like, I'm pretty sure he didn't even have gout. I think he made that part up. The whole time I was thinking, I'm so glad this is free, because I tied up thousands of dollars worth of medical resources. I had 3 pathology results. Like, every time they took my blood, they took vials full, like 3 or 4 vials full of blood, and ran so many tests. Like, they just want to make sure that everything in your blood is perfect, to detect if anything's going wrong with it. And I'm really happy that they explained everything to me as well. Once I finally got the doctor explained everything, and he was so cool. He's like, "Mate, I've seen this heaps of times. Half the time no one even gets symptoms, the other half the time it's like mild." And he said, I've never had anyone with serious complications. So like, obviously he knows what he's talking about. And I was really relieved about that. Yeah, but that was cool. Just be glad it wasn't a pissed off. Yeah, so the only thing is I was wearing thick pants and socks. And it happened right where the thick part of the sock was, so it would have had to go through pants and sock. I would hate to have been wearing like bare feet. But yeah, the entire time I'm thinking like, okay, I've tied up thousands of dollars worth of resources. You said they die within 5-10 minutes. Once the snake bites me, it dies within 5-10 minutes. So at the moment, as far as I can tell, I'm immune to snakes. Either that, or maybe this is building up my immunity. I don't know, but I don't think I don't have to worry about snakes anymore. Because I'm like 1-0, I think, at the moment. Or is it 0-0? Nobody's won anything yet. Nobody's died in the Alec Vs the Snake war. It's still even. I'm like a snake handler from the Bible. So many, anyone that gets it bad is already dead before they get to the dock. Yeah, that's probably right, Prince Paradox. Yeah, so like I was reading the whole triage process for when someone arrives with a snake bite, and if you get bitten bad by a brown snake, apparently you literally just pass out within 15 minutes. And they actually said what happens is you get bitten by the snake, if it bites you really bad, so basically if it injects its venom into your blood, you pass out, and then you wake back up and you feel okay. And once you wake up and feel okay, then you start feeling nauseous, and then you have like a heart attack or a stroke, like at some undetermined period after that. So it's pretty fucking, can be pretty scary. And that was the bit that really scared me, because I was pretty sure I was fine, but there was the whole, you may have a stroke at any time within the next 8 hours. So I thought, oh shit, that's really bad. Yeah, the snake, yeah, if it's like, it definitely didn't get me good at all. Definitely just a tiny little scratch. It's just that it wouldn't stop bleeding, so luckily that's all that happened. So yeah, it didn't cost anything, which is great. I kept having flashbacks to remembering there was a Reddit post about a guy who got bitten by a rattlesnake in America. That's where rattlesnakes are. Ooh, catalyst incoming. Where is this catalyst? Come on, gotta get the kill on catalyst. And yeah, he posted his medical bill from the rattlesnake, and it's pretty much exactly what I had to me. It was literally just blood monitoring, a bed for so many hours, and it cost him $30,000. So I was like, fuck. It doesn't cost anything in Australia. I'm not sure how it works. I think they send the bill to the snake, maybe? But I definitely didn't have to pay anything. So yeah, the money comes from somewhere. Lots of rattlers in West Coast in Canada. We got a catalyst, by the way. This is going to be my mining barge on a catalyst kill mail. So here we go. I actually got the kill. I got the killing blow. The money comes from the tax? No, the snake pays for it. Surely. I believe your gram snake antivenom is one of the most expensive things. Yeah, so in Australia there's 2 distinct varieties of snakes. And if someone presents with like extremely bad snake bite symptoms, they just give them both. Because the worst that can happen is you get like, there's a name for it. If you get the snake antivenom and you don't need it, it just gives you like minor flu-like symptoms. It doesn't even hurt you. Okay, so we got the mining barge on kill mail. That's one. That's 100 plex to plex for Ukraine. That's all I've got as well. I'm out of plex now. So that's my contribution today. We did a total over the last 2 streams, 500 plex to plex for Ukraine. So that's something at least. I got the kill mail. Excellent. Oh, that means I'll have a kill mark on my spaceship. Where is the kill mark? Welcome to the stream, Wursics. I'm sure I got the kill. Yeah, I got the mail, so...
Oh my gosh!
Oh, there it is, it's at the back.
What do I do?
Right there. Nice. Free healthcare if you pay taxes. Yeah, in Australia, everybody contributes to the healthcare, and it's like $400 a year or something. So, I mean, everybody who pays tax pays like $400 a year, and that pays for everyone's healthcare. And I was happy for that. Like, obviously, I was Like, it was pretty efficient. Like, you go into the emergency room in the middle of the night, there's people there, and they help you. And if you've got an emergency, like if you're gonna die, they put you to the front of the line. Like the woman who got, when I went in there and there was a woman who was obviously really injured, her stomach had bad problems. She got straight through. She came in way after I did, and she got put into a bed straight away. And then when I eventually got a bed, I was next to her like an hour after. Medicare levy is 2%, is it? Okay. That's good. Yeah, got a kill. Nice. But so after that whole event, I've looked back and I've thought about it, and I've got some good insights about what you should and shouldn't do if you get bitten by a snake, or even if you think you get bitten by a snake, because I wasn't sure. And if I hadn't gone to the hospital, I would have been fine. Like, it's one of those things where I went to the hospital to be sure, and I'm glad I did, because, you know what I mean, I could have died. You can die from this kind of thing. If you think you've been bitten by a snake. So here's my timeline of what you should do if you're in that situation. Step number 1, don't get bitten by a snake. All right, that is where everything starts to go wrong. Like, if you're doing things and you just get bitten by a snake, that starts the whole thing off. None of the whole rest of the process isn't even required if you don't get bitten by a snake. But if you do get bitten by a snake, first of all, make sure you know that it's happened. Because if you get all the way back to your house and then realize you've been bitten by a snake, potentially an hour earlier, you could already be dead. So don't do that. Don't get bitten by a snake, and if you do, make sure you realize it happened. Steps number 1 and 2. Step number 3, don't spend an hour fucking around reading Google shit trying to figure out whether or not you should go to the hospital. Just go to the hospital. Unless you live in America, where it could cost you $30,000. Because if I lived in America, I'd be out of pocket $30,000 now, and I didn't even actually need to go. So I'm not really sure about that third step, what you should do. So far, the only things I'm sure about is don't get bitten by a snake, and if you do, make sure you know what happened. And that's about it. That's all the insight I have.